finished? Has it been going out doing the same thing?
Or maybe it was
who
still
knows?
incubating.
Galactus has just been taking all the blame?
Probably not, but that also leaves room that if he was on a ship full of super scientists, what happened to the rest of them?
Yeah.
Where's the ship?
Well,
that's what supposedly...
It became that cocoon.
Yes. So there's no telling what happened to the rest of them if they're that smart. Who knows? Maybe they found a way to survive on their own.
Maybe they were the original Heralds.
No, the Heralds were all plucked from different worlds.
Yeah.
Oh.
Their stories can be traced. But we will move on to DC comic news. And first up is something I didn't expect to read about. Frank Miller wants the Batman to be a bad guy in a story.
Huh.
You remember Frank Miller? He's the one that wrote the Dark Knight Rises, one of the more heralded stories in Batman comics, if not DC comics and comic stories in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
He's currently co-writing The Dark Knight 3. He said he's been working on The Dark Knight 4. He said recently, because people have been complaining that in all of his Batman stories, Superman is the bad guy, right?
Okay.
The paraphrase story from Bleeding Cool says, quote, "I've been particularly brutal to Superman, but that's not because I don't like the character. It's because the point of view has always been Batman's. If I did a story where Superman was the lead character, Batman would be the antagonist. I adore Superman. It's just that Batman doesn't. So when I'm writing Batman, I don't. It's very much a writer's job to take on a character's point of view," unquote.
Mm-hmm.
He apparently wants to write a new story where Superman's the good guy and Batman's the bad guy.
Huh.
I wish I
turn Batman into another Lex Luthor.
Well, the thing is, though, I understand why he wants to do that, and a story like that would make sense overall. However, it comes down to the same problem. What exactly constitutes a threat to something like Superman? Because Batman...
It doesn't have to directly threaten Superman. It only has to threaten something that Superman cares about.
Yeah.
Is there anything left like that in the world of The Dark Knight Rises?
I don't know.
That's not a question I can answer. I can answer what's going on currently in the Batman comics. Looks like things are shifting. The current one, the Jim Gordon one. And
okay.
It looks like somebody took outside control of his suit and he had to fight it in his skinny Batman suit, if you recall. But there's two major items that threaten to change a lot of what's going on in those comics. First of all, one of the characters who has been playing Robin lately, a character named Duke, found Bruce Wayne and forced him to stand in front of a train for a little while.
Okay.
Guess what that spurred?
Survival instinct?
Memory.
Gotcha.
Bruce Wayne remembers being the Batman. But that was only one half of the major reveals towards the end of this particular issue, which was Batman 47. Came out this week. He was sitting on that bench where, what was his name? Jim Gordon found him when Gordon started his run as Batman and asked him for help. And he's just kind of looking over the park when somebody else sits down. And Bruce Wayne tells him, "I was in an accident near here." And the other guy looks at him and says, "That's funny. So was I." Want to guess who that was? Because Bruce Wayne disappeared with another DC character.
Oh, shit.
God, the Joker?
Yeah, there is no indication that he has his memory as of yet. It's definitely the Joker with his pale skin, although it's not white. And his hair is black instead of green. But that smile and those bright green eyes make it pretty unmistakable who it is, as well as the fact that he's wearing a black-on-black suit with a purple tie and a purple chrysanthemum, if I see that correctly.
Huh.
So, don't know if the Joker has his memories, but it sounds like a shift in the status quo is coming.
Yep.
Could that be because there's a certain movie coming out in a couple months?
It's highly unlikely. I doubt it, no.
Well, such as it is. And speaking of which, the writer of the current Superman books, where he's depowered, the writer is Yang. I don't have... Oh, Gene Yang. He told Newsarama recently that Superman hasn't even hit rock bottom yet. Now, the reason why he had to qualify that statement is because several things have happened to Superman in this comic that make it pretty dire. We've discussed he's lost most of his powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has lost his armor and the blanket that his cape was made out of.
Mm-hmm.
He's lost his Fortress of Solitude.
Yep.
He's lost his secret identity as Clark Kent. Recently, he lost his best friend Jimmy Olsen via heat beam through the chest.
Oh, really?
Who did that?
I forget who. I remember reading the panels, but I didn't read the actual book, so I don't remember who. And keep in mind, all this has happened to Superman, and the writer says that we still haven't seen the bottom yet.
Oh, crap.
So I read that, and I'm just like, I got to read these comics, because I don't know how much worse this could get. And I'm seriously, as much as I complain about Superman as a character, I am extremely curious about this story arc, because this is not a place I ever pictured DC Comics taking Superman in any form.
Yeah. They really have made him far more human.
And they've taken away just about everything that defined the character up until the recent story arc.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's left? What else can you take from the guy? And this is also the guy who broke up with Wonder Woman. I mean, I can't think of anything left to do except kill him.
I don't know. There's still more you could take, but yeah, do you want to see that?
I kind of do.
Yeah, I really do. I want to see what it's like when this character is actually brought low for once. We've seen him angry. We've seen him despondent. We've just never seen him at absolute rock bottom before. So I'm really curious how he would respond to that. Wouldn't it be bad irony, though, if it turns out after all this time, all he needed to do was like grab some kryptonite and it kickstarts all of his powers again? The one thing he avoids is the one thing that can help. They've also changed the story of Wonder Woman a bit lately. And it's kind of indirect. It really doesn't have much to do with her so much as it has to do with somebody that she deals a lot with. The character of Donna Troy has been turned into one of the Fates.
Oh.
So it's making people question, with that character kind of appropriated for different uses, the character of Ares is returned in the series, how long will this God of War version of Wonder Woman last? Which is a viable question. I admit, though, I haven't read much of the recent Wonder Woman comics, because the character is always kind of aloof. And this recent armor they've got her set in, I like only half of the design. The weird Puerto Rican flag in her crotch is really bugging me. As well as they took those weird hooker boots she's had for most of her continuity, and instead of just toning it down a bit, they doubled down and made them thigh highs, you know? They really don't fit the rest of the costume that they put together.
Mm.
And now DC is following a couple lines from their TV series to make new comics. They're coming out with a new Legends of Tomorrow series. Except this one, well, it's not going to be staffed entirely by the same heroes you would expect. According to the story on Newsaramas, the roster in this book is going to be Firestorm, Metamorpho, the Metal Men, and two characters I don't know called Sugar and Spike.
Interesting.
According to...
Most of those guys are like matter users.
A lot of them. According to the description that Newsarama received, it's going to be written by Jerry Conway with art by Eduardo Pasquina and Rob Hunter. The story release is, quote, Firestorm is back. To save Jason Rush, Firestorm will need to retrieve Danton Black's stolen research from Professor Stein's lab. But if Jason can't fuse with Ronnie by the Firestorm protocol, who can? Unquote. So maybe I have this wrong. Maybe it's not a team book so much as an anthology series of different heroes in the DC universe. Because it also says here, Metal Men, written by Len Wein with art by Yilda Ray. Dr. Will Magnus's Metal Men may be the next step in robotics technologies, but when the mysterious cyber terrorist known only as Nameless comes after them, they may have met their match. There's another story with Metamorpho and another one with Sugar and Spike. So yeah, sounds like this will be an anthology book. I don't know how I feel about that, because as a team, I thought that was kind of eclectic between the Metal Men, Firestorm, and Metamorpho. But as an anthology series, I don't know if I want to read a bunch of mini stories, you know? Because after all, that means you're paying for a 22-page book that's going to have a bunch of stories that are about 6 pages long.
Yeah. Unless they plan on doing it more like a series.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be a series. I think they're going to be telling these stories ongoing, but do I want to pay full comic price for a book where I'm only interested in half the stories? I have misgivings about that. There's also further DC comic news that's following the TV series. While the comic version of Supergirl does not have a series of her own, the TV version of Supergirl will get a series. It's going to be a new digital comic coming for release in the middle of 2016. It's going to be a Season 0 anthology that covers the adventures between episodes of the TV show Supergirl. You guys been watching that?
What? You kind of faded out right there.
Have you guys been watching Supergirl?
I watched 5
Jessica.
episodes of it.
I
really don't want to go continue watching it.
It's a little light on pathos, isn't it? There's not a lot of dramatic bent on the show. It's a lot of campiness and a lot of cheerfulness. I don't know. Sometimes it reminds me of when I see people watching an episode of My Little Pony. It's a lot of happiness for people who are risking their lives. So
I don't know.
It's just what I see. And there's been an announcement that one of the writers on Batman, Scott Snyder, he's going to be leading DC's in-house writer development program. He's going to be annexing a college course of his creation into an in-house program to groom potential new writers for the publisher. In other words, he's going to hold classes within DC Comics on writing.
Okay.
You know, Scott Snyder is actually a pretty good writer. It's just he keeps writing Batman books, and I don't have an interest in Batman books is my problem, you know? But to give you an example, he does have a good turnout when it comes to writers. Some of the writers that have taken his courses over the years are James Tynion IV, who works on Batman and Robin Eternal, and Marguerite Bennett, who's currently working on A-Force and was formerly on DC's Bombshell comics. So he does have a good turnout of quality writers from his courses. This can actually help quite a bit. And I'm not sure, but I think that Scott Snyder also comes to do DC's talent, talent reviews when it comes to Comic-Con submissions. So arguably, this would be the person to ask. All right, next up we have general comic and convention news. We'll talk about the comic book properties that are not Marvel and DC related, as well as news about conventions across the world. And first up is a story that's going to matter to us pretty directly. There is a signing effort going on right now in the city of San Diego to keep Comic-Con within San Diego.
Okay.
It's to get a petition on the ballot to basically push through hotel owners to push through making the hotel owners pay for the convention center expansion down in San Diego. Which is an interesting idea. The thing is, though, is creating a lot of confusion because apparently Comic-Con International itself is getting a lot of letters from people asking, are you really backing this ballot initiative? To which Comic-Con International is saying, what ballot initiative? A lot of people seem to think Comic-Con has some hand in writing this petition, and they don't have anything to do with it. There is contract negotiations coming, I think, after Comic-Con 2016 regarding its future after 2018, but no, they don't have anything direct to do with this.
Right. Yeah, it just sounds like concerned fans going, hey, we should do something.
Yeah, and I will say, though, it is important to get that convention center expansion rolling, because if not, Comic-Con may have to consider other options.
Yeah, and we've already kind of explored this. There aren't very many good ones.
Well, there aren't many good ones in California.
Yeah, in-state.
There may be some out-of-state options that work much better. But, man, it is now 219 days to Comic-Con, and the first exclusive has been announced.
Okay. Really? Already?
Already. And unfortunately, it's from a company that's going to make people spend money. Sideshow Collectibles is first out of the gate.
Well, that's probably why they're releasing it. They're like, well, we'll just get people saving now.
You don't understand, because it's expensive, but it's not terribly expensive. It's a 6-scale figure that they're releasing.
Okay.
Of?
An painted prototype R2-D2 unit. Now wait, before you make any rush judgments, this is again a 6-scale figure of an unpainted R2-D2. In other words, it's monochrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the blue segments are like deep gray, like charcoal, okay? However, this will first be available at Toy Sol in Hong Kong this month, followed by several other Asian conventions and the Star Wars celebration in London before it comes to Comic-Con. This thing, though, is going to be very, very hard to get. And I say that because this will be available at the Sideshow booth at San Diego Comic-Con in July and WonderCon in March. And it will have opening panels on the figure.
Oh.
It will have hinged panels, a monochromatic silver finish, and an articulated light-up dome.
They're pulling out all the stops for this one.
This is going to be a hot item.
Yeah.
You know, this is the kind of stuff, especially after Star Wars comes out next week, this is going to be the kind of thing people fist fight over. You know, Hasbro may have to pull out something nifty to keep its star as king of the convention exclusives with this thing. But speaking of WonderCon, volunteer registration opened up for the convention. If you're looking for a way in, volunteering's not a bad way. You miss part of the convention, but they do actually, I think they reimburse you for the badge for each shift you work in a particular day. And WonderCon badges technically still have not gone on sale yet, which is kind of odd for a convention that's supposed to be coming in late March.
Right.
The assignments are not bad. They'll only be 2 to 3 hours long, and those who volunteer get a free badge for each day of the show they work. I'd rather buy a badge for myself because I want to see as much as possible, but you know, for some people, that's their way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And WonderCon announced more guests this week. They've added Howard Potter, the artist of Superman, the JLA, and the Flash; Joe Quinones, artist on Howard the Duck and Batman 66; Humberto Ramos, artist on Amazing Spider-Man, Extraordinary X-Men, and Crimson; and Victoria V.E. Schwab, the author of the Archived, Vicious, and Darker Shade of Magic series. That's the 6th wave of guests that WonderCon has announced. So just in guests of honor, they have 24, and this convention is taking place this year in Los Angeles, March 25th to 27th. I really need the hotels to open up. I need to get that squared away. Now, this qualifies as news I never thought I would hear of. Tony Moore is returning to an issue of The Walking Dead. We covered like a year ago. Well, we covered a year ago that Tony Moore is one of the co-creators of The Walking Dead along with Robert Kirkman, but they had some kind of falling out over some kind of unpaid fees or profits, and Moore sued Kirkman.
Huh.
I don't remember what the outcome of that was, but as of issue 150 of The Walking Dead, Moore is coming back to do the covers.
Huh.
You know, 150.
Maybe they got their stuff ironed out.
Maybe it just has to do with the anniversary, because these days 150 is a big number in comics. There's not a lot of series that actually hit that these days, at least not consecutively. So either they worked something out, or you know, Moore just said, "This is enough money where I'll do it." You know, F you, but I'll still do it. And there's a new Bloodshot Reborn art coming that's being called Mad Max Meets the Dark Knight Returns.
That sounds scary.
Yeah, well, Bloodshot has always been kind of a strange story. I've never really understood it. It always has to do with a man with white skin and this gigantic red dot on his chest, red eyes. He's always shooting people. He seems kind of like an immortal Punisher. Always comes back to do more damage. So I don't quite know where this is going, but, you know, I might flip through a couple issues to find out if that's worthwhile. Okay, now this is something I never expected to hear. One of comic books' long-standing characters from the 80s is returning to comics. You guys remember the name Rom?
No.
Rom the Space Knight debuted, I think, in Marvel Comics in the 1980s. He was the first of the space.
Anything about him, but yeah.
Yeah, he was the first of the Space Knights, and the Space Knights have endured in Marvel Comics, but due to a fallout with the creator and the fact that he signed a very particular contract that allowed him to keep the copyright, he took Rom with him with the fallout. As of this May's Free Comic Book Day in 2016, there's going to be a special issue 0 release of Rom the Space Knight. He's coming. That's supposed to be the beginning of a new series he's going to headline in IDW Comics.
Yeah, I heard about that. Forget where.
Well, it's going to be helmed by Chris Ryall and Christos Gage. The art's going to be done by David Messina. So the 80s live again. And then there's a character that's even older than the 80s who's coming back for a new series. Maybe this has to do with the movie. Remember how we saw that interesting new trailer for Tarzan?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, Dynamite Comics is taking one of the female leads from the Tarzan comics, Sheena, and giving her own book. The character was created by Will Eisner and Jerry Iger back in 1937. And she actually debuted in her own series, Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, a full 4 years before Wonder Woman made her own debut. So that means Sheena is the first comic book character, the first female comic character to get her own series. The character is going to be headlining a new book called Lords of the Jungle featuring Tarzan and Sheena. I don't know when the book is exactly coming out, but the character's coming back. The longest standing character the longest standing female character in ongoing comics is coming back. It's kind of impressive about that kind of longevity. Dark Horse decided to pick up a new series from Margaret Atwood. She's a Booker Award-winning author of The Blind Assassin, The Handmaid's Tale, and The Heart Goes Last. Although I don't quite know why they picked up this particular series, because I have many questions just based on the title. It's called Angel Catbird.
What?
That's the title, Angel Catbird, which is apparently what the character is. It's being published in tandem with Keep Cats Safe and Save Bird Lives. It's an initiative by Nature Canada. It's a conservation charity. It says, quote, I have concocted a superhero who's part cat, part bird. Due to some spilled genetic super splicer, our hero got tangled up with both a cat and an owl, hence his fur and feathers and his identity problems, unquote.
I think he's got more than just identity problems.
Angel Catbird? Yeah, there's a lot going on there. According to Mike Richardson, Dark Horse's publisher and president, quote, Margaret Atwood has created a bold and unforgettable new character, paying homage to both classic pulp heroes and traditional comic book origin stories. We're proud to bring Margaret Atwood's Angel Catbird here to Dark Horse, since it's exactly the kind of creator-owned graphic novel we're committed to publishing, unquote. Okay, time out, question. What exactly are you committed to? Because I understand creator-owned stuff, but Angel Catbird that's a mouthful just to say.
And you can find a better name for that.
I'm pretty sure there's got to be a couple interesting names you could have used. Chimera, maybe?
Actually, it sounds more like a Sphinx.
Or Griffin.
I
sent you guys the cover from the graphic novel. I'm not behind this.
Oh, God, what the hell?
That's the Angel Catbird. Okay, it looks like he raided Aquaman's closet for those Speedos things
Shorts,
he's wearing.
Yeah.
The rest of it I don't quite know. He looks kind of like a dream I'm sure certain furry fans have.
Not enough fur.
Furry is kind of, furry fans run the gamut there.
Yeah, I know, but
still,
man. Yeah, it just this one's not for me. I'll put it that way.
It's not for me either. I brought it out because it is news of a new independent book, which is important. But at the same time, it's like, what? You're high, okay?
All right. The imagery right here is not good, but I don't know. Maybe its content might be better. I don't know.
Okay, well, this will be more your speed. IDW Comics this March is revisiting classic moments from more popular franchises, including coming out with a new mini series called Transformers Deviations.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Now, they're producing comics in the old-fashioned Generation 1 art style to ask what if Optimus Prime didn't die and was there to stand against Unicron?
I really have no idea how that would end up.
It's an Elseworlds tale, basically.
Yeah.
I'm rather interested in reading that.
It's going to be written by Brandon Easton, and the artist is going to be Priscilla Tramontano. That's a mouthful. Tramontano. It is an interesting question. I don't know anyone's ever actually asked what would happen if Prime actually lived to the end of the movie.
I'm not sure much would have changed.
I think intrinsically a lot would have changed because they would have had a leader instead of just kind of wandering through space.
True, I think the dynamics afterwards would have greatly been different.
Well, the dynamics afterwards, I think the dynamics would have been a lot different because if you remember, the third season of the cartoon had to do a lot with an unsure leader who didn't know what exactly he was doing instead of the stalwart, knight that stood forever. I think a lot would have changed.
Makes you wonder how things would end up with that one story that brought him back.
That probably would never have happened, but I mean, I guarantee you that
the threat still would have been there, though. How would that?
Yeah, but it would have been dealt with a lot more succinctly, though. And I can guarantee you one thing that would change almost overnight in that kind of scenario: Grimlock would not be wearing an apron and carrying around a tray of drinks. No, I mean, that was kind of the foil of the story there, was that Grimlock wasn't there just to cause crap. He was there constantly challenging for leadership. And there was something about Rodimus Prime that never made him do that. However, Optimus Prime, maybe it was just a difference in strength, but he had no problem walking up to him and saying, okay, my turn.
Well, I think he kind of looked at Rodimus Prime and thought, like, he's a friend.
Well, I think he looked at him and said, not worth my time. Just not worth my time. Do whatever you're doing, because it's not fun. And last up in general... I'm sorry?
I was going to say, it was maybe interesting how that Prime's interaction with Galvatron would have been.
Actually, I'd be more interested to see Prime's interactions with Ultra Magnus.
Ultra Magnus would have followed him to the ends of the earth.
I know, but that's another difference in the story. Magnus tends to challenge Rodimus Prime a lot. He doesn't challenge Optimus Prime.
Oh, hell no.
But last up in general comic news, I might actually read a Power Rangers comic. There's a new Power Rangers comic coming out from Comics Alliance. And, they've changed the designs of the characters and definitely updated them. They don't look near as ridiculous even as they looked on 90s TV. I'm going to send you guys the link so you can take a look at the pictures together. But the pictures I'm referring to are of the 6 main Rangers outside of their uniforms. And they've really done a good job of bringing their look into the 21st century. They're still wearing corresponding colors.
Right.
But it's nowhere near as loud as it was.
Right, okay.
It's more subtle. There's actually other colors in their clothes now.
Yeah. The fact that they took away Billy's suspenders, good.
Oh, the
good
weird
change.
Dickies overalls he was wearing forever? I really like it. It's not as stark pastel as it used to be. They're actually wearing clothes instead of just T-shirts and jeans all the goddamn time.
Yeah.
Although Tommy looks like he just came out of a Hispanic mechanic shop.
He looks way too big.
Actually, it looks like he's getting ready to punch both Billy and Zach there.
At the same time, his origins, quite possible.
His arms are way too big for a guy that kicks a lot.
And I know I have no personal connection to this other than my own memories and everything, but it's almost sad to see the character of Trini in the middle there. Every time I think about what happened to the poor actress who played her.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, the original actress who played the Yellow Ranger for America's Power Rangers TV series died in a car accident between seasons of the show. It was just a freak happening, unfortunately. So just looking at I like the new character design they put on her, but at the same time, it makes me a little sad. That was a lady whose life was cut way too short by something out of her control. Okay, last up we have our WTF Corner. We talk about those stories from across the internet that just really make you question the intelligence of the internet in general. And thankfully we're starting off with some video game videos. Both epic plays and epic ruination. And the first one is turning into an oldie but goodie. It's from a game called Star Wars Battlefront. This came from the user ADZ Balasa. ADZ Balasa. Balasa. And they titled this video, Awesome Spawns.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I sent the video. Okay, somebody just spawned in a TIE fighter. And it died.
What the?
He spawned in and just crashed right into debris. So he gets another TIE interceptor, spawns in and crashes in the same place.
Wow.
What the blue hell? Okay, so we get another TIE interceptor.
Go for the interceptor.
Spawning in and crashing in the same place. This is not working.
They need to change the spawn location just a tad.
Okay, TIE fighter, and he made it just in time to get defeated.
Oh. Wow.
I would hate this game.
That right there would, I would be screaming at the screen.
Yeah. So there goes the controller through the wall right there.
Yeah, pretty much. But I have another video here. Hopefully it won't be quite as bad. It's also a Star Wars Battlefront video. This came from Toast and Jan Films. This one, they just titled it AT-AT Sex.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent the video. Okay, there's an AT-AT on the ground, and there's another one trying to walk through it, and it's definitely dry humping the hump of that AT-AT. It looks like somebody's trying to get it free, and it's not really working.
Is she getting it free, or is it shooting it? No. Yeah.
So is this how AT-ATs are built in the Imperial compounds? Commander, set your AT-AT to vibrate.
It's already doing that, sir.
I guarantee if I saw that outside my base, I'd surrender. They're crazy enough to make their AT-ATs hump, man. I don't need to do this anymore. I got another video. This one is from the newer game, Just Cause 3. This came from the user James Patterson with 1 T. Patterson with 1 T. And he calls this video Tank Physics. I sent the video. Oh. Okay, there you see a tank firing on a bigger tank. Mm-hmm. And he took it out. So he starts rolling forward.
Pretty fast firing tank.
That's not even a tank.
Just shot down a helicopter.
Nice.
He's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay, he's backing over the tank and catapult.
Oh.
Why is your vehicle 30 stories in the sky?
Crazy Canuck.
He just took
personal
top,
best.
He just took top in the jumping in his personal friends. And stuck the landing.
Landed. Nice.
Nobody told me tanks were loaded with springs. That'd be one of those things where you just kind of stare in disbelief because no one's going to know what happened. And last up when it comes to video game videos, I got another one here from Fallout 4.
All right.
Fallout seems to have some interesting video game glitches. This one, though, came from user Arek Sigarek, A-R-E-K space C-Y-G-A-R-E-K. He calls this one The Revenge of the Jumping Car.
Oh, boy.
I sent the video.
Pied Piper?
Okay, something wrong with that car. It's haunted. Hey, it blew up. Oh, no, it's on fire. You see it there just trying to get out of that hump it's stuck in. Oh, it exploded.
Cool.
Where'd it go? Oh, okay, it's still flying. It's flying on top of you. It crushed him. Never shoot inanimate cars. They get angry, apparently.
That'd be Bumblebee.
I just like the fact that as it was sitting there, it just kind of leapt on top of him. It's like Christine finally had its revenge after all these years. Now, I got to ask you guys a question. If you decided to rob a house, where would you hide?
In or out? Inside or outside the house?
Wherever. Where would you choose to hide?
Before going in or
after you rob the house?
It? After.
Oh,
yeah.
After.
In the case that someone came home and discovered me in the middle of doing this, or...
No, that you're trying to evade authorities. Where would you hide after you rob a house?
Okay, so authorities...
Not in the house I just robbed.
Well, there was a young man named Matthew Riggins. He was a 22-year-old burglary suspect who was trying to evade authorities. This was down in Brevard County in Florida. And he, as a result of hiding, died by drowning.
Oh.
Really? He hid in the goddamn pool?
No. He hid in the countryside, not too far from one of the houses. He died by drowning as a result of missing his lower extremities and part of his arm.
He got attacked by an alligator.
Yeah, an 11-foot gator decided to lay claim to that.
Whoopsie.
Apparently, residents on November 12th at around 2 in the morning called to say that 2 men dressed in black were walking behind houses near Tequesta Drive. Then Riggins and this other man were spotted on Royal Palm Boulevard, but they fled authorities. A canine and a helicopter search didn't turn up much. The day after Riggins was reported missing after he didn't come home, his body was found in Barefoot Bay Lake, just north of Ocean Avenue on November 23rd, 10 days later. When sheriff and dive team members were recovering the body, they encountered a large alligator, quote, aggressively approaching, unquote. I love the fact that the sheriff added this little statement, quote, a forensic examination of the alligator located remains consistent with the injuries to Riggins inside the alligator's stomach, unquote. Really? You really had to go that far? Because I seriously doubt like a couple largemouth bass did that to him. You know what I mean?
They have to be detailed.
I just don't think you need to be that sure.
Well, I'm sure they had to kill it because it was aggressively approaching, so why not?
Of course it's aggressively approaching. You're taking its box lunch. Man, I don't have a house of my own. There is a 400 square foot house that can be assembled in 3 days that could be owned. And It is a mound of dirt.
Okay.
The company is called Green Magic Homes. They develop prefabricated houses that look a lot like Hobbit homes.
Huh.
They can be assembled by 3 people in about 3 days' time. They're designed to exist under a layer of soil and turf and can produce food if you're ambitious enough to garden veggies on the roof.
Interesting.
The prefabricated vaulted panels are made with composite laminates. They're confined by walls and reinforced soil. The structure even has perforated flaps in order to screw in and seal the components together. This sounds like a really nifty innovation, frankly.
Yeah, it does, actually.
You know, it's not exactly large homes by American standards, but 400 square feet could still be a pretty good small house.
Yeah.
And the thing is, a lot of people discount the soil on the roof. I mean, that could really affect temperature control during the year. It can help a lot. You know, there is no better insulator than soil, realistically. Let alone, you put something like this on a hill, dude, you're not just looking at the view, you're part of the view.
Yeah, true enough.
Now, there is a man in England, his name was Joe Christie, and he decided to do the right thing when he saw a woman drop a 10-pound note. And no, I don't mean a heavy notebook. I mean, 10 pounds of English currency, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just a 10-pound bill. He's a musician, so you can imagine he doesn't make a terrible amount of money in general.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking down Streatham High Street in South London. He saw a 10-pound note fall from a woman's jacket pocket. He grabbed it off the floor and approached her to give it back. He was actually being a concerned citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Before he even had a chance to explain to her why he was interrupting her walk, she replied with this response. Quote, sorry, I'm not into black boys, unquote.
What?
She basically told him she's not into black people, and she left. Now, what would your response be if something like that happened to you?
Free money?
That's mine. Yeah, free money.
He did it even better. He posted a picture on Twitter that showed 7 pounds and 50 cents, or no, 7 pounds and 5 pence in his hand. And it says on the tweet, quote, "Thanks for buying me lunch," unquote. Screw it if she ain't going to listen. At least he got something out of it.
Yeah.
Now, Japan has been known to have some of the weirdest food products I've ever heard of. And last week we talked about the Macho Cafe, or the Macho Men Ramen Cafe, where they were just serving mountains of ramen in little itty bitty bowls. This is about the same thing, but I guess you can almost say that this one is American inspired. Are you guys familiar with the band AKB48? And I use the word band very loosely.
It's a Japanese idol group, isn't it?
It's an idol group. It's usually a group of singers that the number of them is around 48 individuals. But they have several lower tier groups. There's also NGT 48 from the Nagata area. And yes, that's also a group of singers of 48 individuals.
Right.
Okay. And to do some cross-promotion in Japan, McDonald's in Japan has recently introduced a 48-piece nugget meal.
Damn. Wow.
You can now order what they call Nugget 48. In other words, NGT 48, Nugget 48. You see where this is going?
That's awful.
I have to, you know what? I have to give them props for that naming design there. That's actually pretty damn good.
Yeah, for 1,800 yen or approximately $14.69 US, you get a 48-piece nugget bucket. Dude, you know what? No.
No, I agree. No.
It's already odd enough to eat 6 pieces of mystery chicken. I don't need 48.
I grew up eating chicken McNuggets. I loved them with honey. I would probably do a dinner with the family for that. Why not? I'm not going to eat 48 by myself. There's no way.
I am not down for this.
I think I could get away with eating 48 of those.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way.
I'm going to be sick later, but I feel I can do it.
You can have my bucket too. I'll double down on this nightmare. It must be terrible sometimes to be a celebrity. Norman Reedus. Do you guys know who that is?
No.
Wrestler?
Norman Reedus has been an actor in a few films, including Boondock Saints. Most recently, his most well-known role is Daryl Dixon in The Walking Dead, the world's most lovable redneck hunter, basically.
Okay, yeah, that's where I heard his name.
Okay, he was at the recent Walker Stalker Con, and like a lot of celebrities, he had a ticketed photo opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody bit him.
Oh, I heard about this.
This is actually kind of a strange story. Now, number one, it's a waste of $100. It's $100 to get a photo op. Okay? And the lady lost 2 more $100 photo ops because she's apparently a huge fan of the show. She didn't walk in there planning to have a Walking Dead moment, but according to her own statement, the mood just kind of took her. She didn't know what she did. She opened up his shirt and nibbled on his chest while waiting for the picture.
What?
She was standing between Norman.
That's a person that has a little bit of a problem with her inhibitions.
Yeah, she was standing between Norman Reedus and Michael Rooker, who plays Reedus' brother in the show, or played, I should say. And Rooker was apparently the one who saw that and said, quote, "The f*** was that?" unquote. Security saw what happened, removed her from the convention entirely, and they had to tell her, "Sorry, ma'am, we are taking you out of the convention because you just bit Norman Reedus."
You're disturbed.
Yeah, Reedus has declined to press charges because, as he put it, it's a nibble and it didn't break the skin. Apparently, the woman has apologized profusely because that really wasn't a plan. She just lost her head. I don't think she's been banned from the convention, but she was definitely not allowed to come back that weekend.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. You know, you got to keep your head about you. Even when you meet celebrities, you got to remember they're people.
They're people.
Biting hurts. Now, unfortunately, we go from one story of an individual losing their heads to a group of people losing their heads. And this is going to be something I've talked about before, but this is a kind of story that bears repeating. There were 4 people who went to the recent San Diego Chargers game in San Diego versus the Denver Broncos. They were all Broncos fans. And they were not allowed to attend the game initially.
What?
They weren't allowed to attend the game. The 3 out of 4 were wearing Broncos jerseys. The fourth one was wearing like an approximate orange polo shirt. It wasn't that nearly didn't get them into the game. 3 out of 4 are wearing turbans.
Oh my God.
San Diego security initially would not allow them to enter the stadium unless they took off their turbans.
Why?
I don't know. Now, there's a couple...
Stupid.
There are several things obviously wrong with this story. One, the turban is religious. People can't just remove them on a whim. You know, this is part of their actual religion, and we need to respect that. Number 2...
That turban is usually part of Hinduism?
Correct. These are not Muslims. These are Sikhs.
You fucking ignorant dumbasses.
You know, these are guys that have nothing to do with anything other than wanting to go to a Chargers game. And unfortunately, fortunately for them, they were able to argue their point, as well as another individual, a friend of theirs, a white guy, of course, who argued these are friends. You know, they're coming to watch the game. Let them in, watch the game. So eventually, security relented. They were allowed to watch the game. However, on the way in, security did tell them that in the future, they would not be allowed inside if they're still wearing the turbans.
You guys are fucking morons.
Yep.
Seriously, these guys drove 7 hours from Fresno to watch this game. And they're not the only morons. Police were called by people who were tailgating, reporting that 3 turban men were moving stuff around in the trunk of the vehicle they drove in. You want to know what they were doing?
Unpacking their...
Even better, they were following the rules. They drove up to the stadium. One of them got out with a bag. They walked up to the stadium, realized the stadium had an anti-bag policy, so they went back to their car so they could put away the bag. However, they still had to talk to police and had to be cleared by a bomb-sniffing dog.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Are they that paranoid?
Yes, they are.
It's not even the police because they're called out for other people's paranoia.
You know, I used to think, you know what, terrorism's not really going to do anything. You know, it's doing something now.
Yeah,
they've finally got people scared, and I think you guys are idiots. You're just giving them what they want.
You know, I don't subscribe to the rhetoric of like Trump and Cruz and all that. And I despite everything that's happened within this state, I still don't see Muslim people as evil. You know, it's the usual fundamentalists of any religion that tend to twist things to drastic measures, be it, you know, ISIS, be it the Ku Klux Klan, be it the Black Panthers. It's always somebody who just takes things too far that really makes things hard for everybody else.
Yeah, I pretty much sum it up as, you know what, people are evil. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter how you were raised. There are going to be some people that just, they can't fucking control themselves. They don't know what the hell they're doing, or they do, which is even worse. But yeah, no,
it's just
people. It doesn't. Oh man.
You know, the only thing I can say about this whole nightmare is that now, being a black person, it'll actually be easier for me to walk around because we're not what people are afraid of anymore.
Sadly enough.
Seriously.
Although there was that one guy that called you a Santa that one time.
Yeah, that was fun. He really wasn't expecting me to speak perfect English, let alone be able to call him on his own stupidity. I have another video in the WTF, and this one is one I think we'll want to see. You guys know how I'm a fan of honest trailers. They're the guys who make fun of all the trailers for really bad movies.
Yeah.
Well, because of recent releases, they got their hands on something new. They've decided to do a video on the Fantastic Four movie from 2015.
Okay.
And instead of playing this before one of the shows, I just decided maybe we should just sit down and listen to the fun. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay. I sent the video. A lot of demands to do Fantastic Four, and here it comes.
Include even the Chris from the Time Lord.
The director of Chronicle, and a fantastic version of this movie you'll probably never see. And the studio that already brought you 2 ridiculously campy Fantastic Four movies. Comes a reboot that's completely different, yet somehow still just as bad. Fan Four Stick. It's been 10 years since the last good Fantastic Four movie. Now, Fox must crank out another one, or lose the rights to a studio that would do a much better job. So prepare for the obligatory trotting out of Marvel's first family like you've never seen them before. Moody, awkward, and really, really low energy.
And now I'm here.
So you are.
Meet 4 people who are never referred to as Mr. Fantastic, The Thing, Invisible Woman, The Human Torch, or the Fantastic Four.
It's fantastic.
Say that again?
There's Reed, the genius who can bend his body into new and exciting ethnicities. Ben, a big-hearted rock monster whose superpower is not having genitals. This underused actress in a terrible wig who's left behind to make the guys' uniforms.
I'm making the environment suits.
And Johnny, a street racing brat cliche with the power to ignite internet comment sections for being a black guy. Journey to the Baxter Institute, where kids create billion-dollar inventions powerful enough to destroy the world in exchange for pats on the back.
You all deserve an enormous pat on the back.
And wonder how these child geniuses also manage to be total idiots as they get drunk. Recruit Reed's unqualified childhood friend who gave him a screwdriver one time. Teleport to Mordor. Take some selfies.
This one is definitely going on Instagram.
And immediately stick their hands in alien goo. Dude, don't touch the goo. That's alien planet rule number 1. Tremble in anticipation for the return of one of Marvel's greatest supervillains, Doctor Doom. Then shake your head in disappointment when you're stuck with this superpowered sex doll instead, complete with vague abilities, vague motivations, and vague Ghostbusters references.
There is no Dana, only Soul. There is no victor, only doom.
Who Doctor Doom's the movie just when things start to get interesting to deliver a ridiculous finale where a villain who can literally do anything with just his mind loses to 4 inept teenagers whose best strategy is to punch him in the face.
It's clobbering time!
So get ready for a superhero film that's ashamed to admit it's a superhero film.
They're not powers. They're aggressively abnormal physical conditions that we're gonna...
Featuring some of Hollywood's hottest young actors, totally phoning it in.
We're a team now, and there's 4 of us, so we should come up with a name for it.
Clumsy references to the comic books.
Dr. Doom over here.
Hey, clobbering time.
And bizarre shifts in time that seem to mark exactly when the studio took over from the director.
Who is to blame for the overwhelmingly negative reviews for Fantastic Four? Well, director Josh Trank is saying not it. Currently sitting at a 9% with critics on Rotten Tomatoes.
Geez, what a mess. The movie about making this movie would be so much better than this movie. Starring, were you stretching or were you dragging? A wasted House of Cards actor. A chocolate snowman. Michael B. glad you don't have to do any more of these. Another wasted House of Cards actor. And Crash Test Doomy. Fantastic Four. Strike 3. Man, you know it's bad. Stan Lee won't even make a cameo.
Whoa!
That was painful.
Oh, that last one was below the belt.
Yeah. You know it's bad when even Stan Lee won't make a cameo in it. That was fun. Last up in WTF, did you know there is a Twitter dedicated to the strange labels in Batman 66 show? If you follow the Twitter at Batman 66 labels, it's run by a guy named Aaron Reynolds. All it does is list the strange labels that you see throughout the TV show. And boy, I'm kind of glad he did this. I need to start following this Twitter because there's a lot of strange stuff that didn't deserve labels in that show that had it, like the Truth Control Bat Tester. And all these labels weren't like printed labels. This was all seemed to be stuff that was just slapped on labels and written. Ice Ladders had its own label. Lemonade. Jars of lemonade had a label that said lemonade. I especially love the shelf of books. It's called the Bat Research Shelf. There's a console in the Batcave marked the well-known criminals file. How about this? A little radio phone that has on it gossip phone. There's an actual gossip phone in the show. The getaway rocket has its own label. Oh, I missed that in the movie. There's a bat ladder. That rope ladder actually...
pole, I suppose.
No, the rope ladder actually has a sign on the bottom. It says bat ladder. Just in case you weren't sure. The Bat Terror Control. I don't know if that means he's following terrorism or if that's the control he uses to create terror. The Batostat Anti-Fire Activator. It's called a thermometer. I gotta start following this, man. There was really, as entertaining as that show is, there's a lot of stupid in it. Okay, the subject of the week is the current run of Batgirl, issues 35 to 38. It was the beginning of the run by Babs Tarr. She was a new artist, and this was kind of a different creative direction for DC at the time. It was written by Stewart. What was his name? Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher. Babs Tarr was the artist. Cameron Stewart did the breakdowns as well. And it's a different take on Batgirl for sure. This is the post-Flashpoint Batgirl who is Barbara Gordon able to walk even though she was paralyzed for a time. The details are still kind of sketchy to me. I've never heard them actually explain when she was able to walk again. But this series actually begins with her leaving her old roommate, a transsexual named Alicia, and starting graduate school studies in I guess you could say a Gotham suburb called Burnside. What are you guys' initial opinions on the book?
It feels like you could do something similar to what they did in the Supergirl TV show.
Actually, it reminds me a bit of when I first read the current run or the prior volume of Hawkeye. It felt like they were trying to find the comedy in what would be the day-to-day life of a superhero.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it had the I wouldn't say teen moments, but that, getting out, kind of trying to find yourself a little bit. I liked the art. Wasn't so sure I was going to right off the bat.
The art takes some getting used to.
It grew on me. And,
yeah.
It fit the tone they set. However, it took a while to figure out what that tone is going to be because the first issue really did jump between very serious moments to very quirky moments.
It kind of even jumped in the narration. Especially I turned a page and I was like, wait, what did I just miss? And turned back and I was like, okay, no.
Well, that's why I say that's why I say kind of reminds me of a Supergirl TV show, as in the way it's said. It seems like it's a 3-act part with that first page, like the thing you see before the credits.
The thing is, though, it has a different version of narration. A lot of the time, expositionary dialogue is internal monologue or another character kind of yakking in your ear. In the case of this series, it seemed like exposition was primarily handled via text. True. There was a lot of text messages you had to follow up on in the going on between characters.
Which was, I actually kind of noticed that a bit because, I am getting more old school now. I'm not doing as, all the Twitter and all the rest of that stuff. But, seeing it in the comic, it kind of puts it more to the present, in my opinion.
It helped add a little bit of perspective, especially on the view of 20-somethings nowadays. I did like the portrayal of how they viewed the inner working of Barbara Gordon's mind as kind of a living person with eidetic memory.
Right.
Yeah.
How she recalls everything both physically and mentally as she's going through, as she's trying to remember whatever it is she's trying to remember. It was interesting in some of the latter issues when she's reliving her childhood by literally reliving it in her own memories.
Yeah.
Especially the fact that she was watching an anime at the time. I was just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, although they started in kind of a strange place when, was it early on in the book, she had a blackout drunk moment and didn't remember she was making out with some random guy?
Yeah. It was... I don't know. I mean, I suppose if I had started reading from issue 1, it might have made a little bit more progressive sense, but...
I don't think it would have, because this first issue, 35, marks a major shift in tone.
Okay.
In the series. The prior stuff was more standard superhero fare. She was still closely related to the Bat family. It was still more of a serious superhero book. She occasionally was teaming up with the other birds of prey. It was much more standard superhero stuff. This one feels much more... It's not quite as much of a coming-of-age story as Miss Marvel, but it comes close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, the fact that she accidentally, was the cause of losing all of her stuff and having to start over almost from ground zero.
Well, she wasn't the cause of losing all of her own stuff. She was the cause of losing all of Dinah's stuff.
Yeah.
And her stuff. She stored her costume and, all of her other crime-fighting utensils and
But that's the thing. She only lost her crime-fighting gear. Dinah lost her life.
True.
All of her... Barbara accidentally burned down Dinah's entire building. which was, where she was storing everything while Dinah was out and about.
Without permission.
Yes. And that's a very strange turn of events that requires a lot of explanation. But long story short, someone seems to be hacking into Barbara Gordon's life and is perfectly cognizant of the fact that she is or was Batgirl at the time.
And as a result of that, was at some point paralyzed.
Yeah.
That was creepy.
Whoever it was hacked into her systems and may have accidentally set off an incendiary flare inside her van, which burned down Dinah's place. And Dinah, we're talking about here, is the Black Canary. That was kind of a funny moment in the first issue when Dinah is yelling at her phone and accidentally breaks it with a canary cry.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Dinah's... I don't know. I kind of like a sister series to this whole book just about Dinah's life at this point, because it seems like she's not interested in superheroics either.
No, yeah. She just wants to get her life put back together. I mean, I don't know where she was out and about, and what all that was about. There's obviously a falling out between the two of them and so forth as well. But yeah, joining a band with the ability of doing sonic cries.
That's one of those things that I'm ashamed I never thought about before. Because it's just so appropriately funny.
Yeah.
I did appreciate that, although this book, I think, was written by a couple of guys, Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher, they seem to have a really good grasp on the lifestyle of women nowadays. I mean, they had this well thought out. They thought about modern forms of communication. They even had dating app ideas planned out in their heads.
Yeah, and I can already see that coming back to bite a whole bunch of people.
Oh, it will eventually. It already is over the course of the first 4 issues. But at the same time, they're not thinking... That's something that I guess is a generational thing. We're hitting that point where a lot of writers are stuck in ideas that you could honestly say are so 2005.
In a way, yeah.
But, but these guys are honestly thinking about writing in terms of today's technology and today's social climate. I think they're doing a good job of keeping up with the times.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant about, the fact that they had so much of the texting and the picture, cell phones in general, all of that stuff.
They even came up with the impetus with the burning down of the van and the crime gear of how Batgirl's new costume is going to come about.
Right.
And it's amazingly cosplay-like. All the way down to her just getting it
easy to recreate.
Yeah, that leather jacket and her just stenciling on the bat symbol with yellow fabric paint.
It's like, cosplayers, here's the instructions.
Pretty much, yeah. Let's see. I had a little trouble following the first villain of the book, Riot Black. I don't know if they were talking about him in prior issues necessarily, but the way he was introduced in this one was very cut, dry, and kind of boring.
Yeah, it was just more of okay, let's lead into this whole conspiracy theory. Here's your first introduction. All right, shoo, go away.
Pretty much. I mean, the story of how she outsmarted him, again, is very much with the times via Snapchat and a glyph.
Which, I applaud them for that.
Yeah. I'm not making fun of it. Like I said, they're very much keeping in times with current technology, current social media. They really did think about this in the form of younger people reading this book. It's very cool. It really is. Just because I'm near 40 doesn't mean I'm stupid.
Yeah.
It is a little intimidating, though, that over the first 4 issues, it was made very clear that there is someone not just stalking her, but has an amazing amount of details about her life. Which, I guess, for any superhero, should be about the most frightening thing they could technically come across.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone it's somebody that they have no idea who it is. And they went through great pains to just go through intermediaries. They purposefully went through a bunch of people just to challenge her, piss her off, and keep her moving.
And the fact that they have her algorithm that she was designing that she apparently based off of her own brain, and then the lab assistant asks her, well, why didn't you back it up? She's like, well, it has all this stuff on there. Would you want it out there? And it's just like, okay, but it's out there now, and I don't think she's come to that realization yet.
She did mention that at some point during the book.
But she's not... I would be petrified if it had that kind of information the fact that she, I don't know, maybe it's denial, maybe it's just, that it hasn't quite connected, but it's a pretty good way that someone has found out all that stuff about her.
I have a theory on it, but I think it might have been already answered with the subsequent issues that we have not read.
Well, if I remember correctly, the issue going on here is that the data thief long-term was the calculator who decoded the information. And then he just started jacking with her head.
Right.
Okay.
Makes sense.
She put together, I think in the third or fourth issue we read, that, her algorithm was out there and therefore her brain scan was. However, she had no idea who was doing it. And the calculator, that's right up his alley as to be a data thief and just information hoarder.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed before, the calculator doesn't like thinking there's other people out there who are as smart as or smarter than he is. It's one of his pet peeve things. They put together an interesting supporting cast. You can see the love triangle building very early on here.
Mm-hmm.
Between Barbara Gordon, the professor overseeing her graduate project, and then this random beat cop she ran into. All of which are nice enough people and have good reasons to do what they do, thankfully. Not one of them seems to be inherently stupid. And that's one of the things that always bothers me with a lot of modern writing. When you have love triangles, there's always at least one of them which is perpetually dense and one-dimensional.
Mm.
And all these characters actually have viable reasons to do what they do.
I have to say, where we stopped reading and that phone call came in from her, that was kind of creepy.
Oh, yeah. That's just another example of how deeply in her life, whomever it is.
Yeah, I was like seriously tempted to go out and get the next issue because I was just like, okay, that's not a good place to stop.
Am I the only one, though, who is reading the second issue, number 36, and when she's going to visit the brother of one of her project assistants, and he mentions that his bike with the jet engines and the smart controls, intelligent chassis and jet boosters and robotic engines was stolen, the first thing I thought was, well, that's a bad cycle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially after she jumped on it, and then she asked him to borrow it again, and I'm just like, well, of course.
Just paint the stupid thing. That was something else that kind of stuck out to me over the course of the 4 issues, though. You can see the lattice work she's building, and it doesn't look like she's trying to be a superhero so much as she's trying to solve the problem of what exactly is happening around her.
Yeah, although she also kind of strikes me as more of a Spider-Man amongst the Bat family. She's out taking care of the petty crimes.
That's definitely the role she's been written into here. I was going to say, though, I got to give the writers a commendable job again, because whereas with everything that's surrounding the character of Barbara Gordon, it could have easily fallen into a formula of Hero and the Scoobies, like the same formula that's been established since the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show.
Mm.
Except all it is her confiding in small amounts in different people to get different items. She doesn't actually have a group of backup. She just has a bunch of people she goes to in certain situations where she requires a bit of extra skill or technology to finish the job.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't actually have a whole bunch of confidants. And I like
and yet
that.
She's not doing it all on her own.
Yeah. It's just something that's rare in comics. We kind of touched on that earlier, where not a lot of superheroes have secret identities anymore. It just doesn't seem to be the way
public,
they operate.
Yes, but the people in the know, no, they seem to drop it at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Did I tell you?
In this case, she's maintaining very well. And I don't know, what do you guys think about the lack of incorporation of other members of the Bat family in this book? I found it refreshing.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, when they name drop Bats, with the conversation with Dinah and her wanting to do all the social media and so forth, I was like, okay, so there's that. But yeah, kept it a pretty far distance away from the rest of them.
I actually thought that was a pretty good idea, because they did mention her history, but they did a good job of establishing, both in the execution and in the writing itself, that Batgirl is going to be a completely different animal from the rest of the Bat family.
Yep. I don't even think she was trained by Bruce, so...
No, she did get trained later, not initially.
Yeah. It wasn't her first training. The year one story established pretty well that she was self-taught at first, but when she was discovered as Batgirl by Batman, she was taken under the wing, so to speak.
Yeah. Even still, I don't think she got as firmly programmed as the rest of them.
She did up until this point. If you remember, this is post-Flashpoint. This is after the era where she had found out that not only was Batman willing to kill the Joker to keep their secrets, but the Joker, he was keeping a series of secrets about them from themselves. I don't remember the precise story, but basically Batman had lost the trust of every one of his sidekicks at that point, including his own son.
Huh.
So this would have been starting not long after she had completely split from Bruce Wayne and his extended family. Yeah, I did like the idea that she was actually trying to use social media to her advantage. She was actually trying to put herself not in a spotlight, but just make herself more public, because she doesn't hide in shadows.
Yeah, to me it was another similarity between her and Spider-Man in that fashion, which isn't a bad thing, because considering the similarities between the two characters, age-wise and crime-wise and so forth, it makes sense. But she was definitely more modern about it.
Well, this was an example of what's been being called in comics Hawkeyeing, because when Hawkeye came out a couple volumes ago, you remember how that narrative changed. It became much more pulpy. It wasn't superhero involved. It was just a guy trying to protect his building from organized crime.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also a very big narrative risk, because they spent almost as long cracking jokes as they did actually doing anything in the comic. So Batgirl is essentially DC's first shot post-Flashpoint at Hawkeyeing. They tried a very different narrative approach and slightly rewrote the character to fit something a little different compared to the rest of their books. And I think for the most part, in my case, I think it works.
Yeah. I was definitely not turned off by it at all.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's a perfect book. There were a couple of things about it that didn't quite sit well with me, but as a new start, it actually did draw me in. I want to read more Batgirl as a result of this.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that really took me off was when they went to the art show. And
yeah, I knew that was coming.
Her new roommate all of a sudden had, crutches.
Yeah, I was wondering
and I was
about
like,
that.
Wait, what? When did this happen? And then I kind of went back and I actually looked, and most of the scenes where you're interacting with that roommate, she's sitting on the couch. They never actually show her standing up.
I know. I had to double back on that myself, because I don't know anything about Batgirl's extended character gallery there other than the Black Canary. So that was a mystery to me, although I saw the openings where something could have been revealed, but I'm going to chalk that up to the fact that obviously the character of, I think it was Frankie, was somebody that Barbara already knew, and it's not something you're going to ask her for the third time. Hey, you still using those crutches? Yep, still here.
It just took me by surprise. It seemed like it would have been something you would have seen in their home life, but they didn't call out the fact of it until they were out and about on the town type thing.
It was another reveal in comics I was kind of glad that didn't come from a necessary exposition or telling some kind of strange backstory. It's like most things in life. Sometimes you're just going to find out something by experiencing it, and it was kind of the same case here.
Yeah, well, but the other thing that I guess kind of took me by surprise was the fact that, like, when they were out clothes shopping, she didn't have them.
Yeah.
Not everybody who needs crutches, though, needs them 24/7. I've seen a lot of people stand and take short walks without them.
It just seemed it just really surprised me when all of a sudden she had them, and I was just like, wait, did I miss part of the story? Did something happen to her?
Yeah, I'm going to guess there's something just before Babs Tarr took over when she was getting ready to make this move to Burnside. That's probably the story I missed.
Yeah.
Issue 37 was the infamous issue that got DC into a bit of trouble, because it turns out that a fake Batgirl that's been running around for a few issues turned out to be a guy. Yeah.
I thought that was actually quite amusing.
An artist who calls himself Dagger Type. And now that I've read through the story where he made his grand coming out, took off his mask on stage, and people rejected him, I still don't know why there were people that were kind of butthurt over the story.
I don't either.
some people equated it to, what was it, DC saying that, gays and transsexuals should never come out. And I didn't take it as that. I just took it as they were a crowd who was expecting a girl who didn't get one.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely nothing to do with the plot. I mean,
yeah.
If you want, if you want to try hard enough, you can be butthurt over a lot of things. But yeah,
it sounds like it's just people who just saw the imagery and didn't look at the context behind it all.
They were projecting.
Yeah,
but no, I personally I was not at all thrown off by it, other than the fact that it was just like he actually thought that was going to work. Okay,
he's out of his goddamn mind.
And then he resorted to the gun, and we found out that everything Dagger Type was doing was still being manipulated by a third party.
Yep, and apparently he can't shoot. He hit no one with 3 shots into the crowd.
He couldn't shoot for crap with that revolver. Maybe it was the press-on nails he was using. I don't know. The ending of the issue, though, was the end of the first story arc, and I found it to be kind of appropriate where, she used Dinah to take a selfie from the top of one of the bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Just something good for social media. I could see a lot of people doing that. Superhero or not, if you got access to a vista like that, you're going to take advantage of it. And the last issue was the first part of a new story arc, obviously.
Right.
It was still Babs Tarr art. It was still Stewart and Fletcher writing it. It's still a very solid issue. It was just the place we chose to stop was the beginning of something else, and it's a painful place to end things.
I was really, really tempted to go out and get the next issue because I was like, oh.
I did kind of laugh myself stupid because the selfish snob of a celebrity here was definitely some kind of Justin Bieber offtake. His name was Justin something. It was really stupid.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh no, Jordan Barbieri. Barberi. Okay, that's it. Jordan Barberi. Yeah. You know who that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
That was something else that the last issue we read, 38, dealt with pretty well that's rarely ever dealt with in comics, and that is the consequences of being a vigilante. I don't mean the personal one so much as the accidental property damage that can really affect a city. You can mean perfectly well, but sometimes when you crash a car through a diner, there is no saving anything.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it as her cop love interest points out, he can't afford that insurance. He can't afford to rebuild. Had it been solely due to the police, then the city would have been on the line to pay those damages. But because she was involved, it technically would default onto to her. And at the same time,
diner's
this
insurance,
guy, at the same time, the fact that Barbieri was driving the car, though, too, should also be liable for damages. But
except a talented lawyer could argue that if it wasn't for the crazy person who threw the weird foam in there, he wouldn't have lost that control.
True. Although he was drunk as fuck, and I don't think
I'm not going to say
that. But anyway.
I'm not going to say here and say that fictional Justin Bieber was in the right. But it's just obviously. A talented lawyer can obfuscate the truth far enough where he probably wouldn't be found liable for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, superheroes tend to muck up the judicial system.
Yeah. Well, that's the other odd thing about this particular story is that, do you know that DC Comics actually has laws on the books where superheroes can stand trial without taking off their masks? So it technically shouldn't be that hard for her to testify, except...
it depends if the cities acquired those laws. Well, they're in Gotham, so yeah, obviously they do.
Oh, no, it's not Gotham City. It's a national law. One of the legal characters in the DC Comics wrote it up, but it just occurred to me that was pre-Flashpoint.
Yeah, I was going to say. Because that was the point I was going to make is, unless you have some kind of official legal ability to have that interaction, but at that point you aren't a vigilante anymore.
Not technically. I'm not going to say it makes sense. I think it was one of those things that was written up in the 70s or 80s to make it possible for them to put away criminals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm not going to argue that point simply because a law in its face like that couldn't work.
Yeah.
The last part of the last issue where, because of the diner destruction, Batgirl was getting a lot of hate on social media, it's one of those moments where that's why I don't like social media, but that's almost precisely what would happen, frankly.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of knee-jerk reactions to an accident. You know, like not allowing guys who wear turbans into a football game.
You have society and so forth on this social media glorifying an idiot. It's so much like real life, you know. And of course, everyone is going to back the idiot rather than the person that was trying to stop them from doing something wrong.
That was something else that stuck out to me over these 4 issues, was how often Barbara Gordon, when she was tracking down criminals, wasn't actually tracking criminals. She was just checking Facebook.
Yeah.
You know,
because
seeing where they were going.
Are pretty much going, here I am.
Yeah, they're narcissists
Why do I
who
need
are
to hide?
narcissists constantly checking in online as to what they're doing and trying to seem important. So it's really easy to track someone nowadays. I never thought about it in those contexts, but that's probably because I use social media just very sparingly in my own life.
Yeah.
As we've shown with that how evil are you chart, we're not that narcissistic. So
I am. Remember, I'm the nefarious one.
Ah. Well, I use it primarily for this communication, mostly.
Yeah, we found out I'm the evil one. I would honestly say that this particular book, I'd recommend it to a few different people.
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely recommend this to a younger crowd. I'm definitely seeing that I'm definitely feeling a generational gap with it, though.
I'm not feeling a generational gap. There's only one problem in a referral of this book, and that is that despite the fact that they find a good jump-in point to actually get involved with Batgirl, you still need to know a ton of back history to have any of this make sense.
Yeah, why
it's like
the wheelchair so important?
Exactly. If we didn't already know a lot about Barbara Gordon, the context of the wheelchair, the fact that she was crippled, how much she was hiding from other people, wouldn't make any sense.
But other than, you know, I think the wheelchair and the fact that she was crippled, that's kind of a pretty big one. But for the rest of it, if you're just reading it for the story and as a jump-in point, it doesn't really detract from the narration that much.
There's still a lot you'd have to catch up on, though, because just the inclusion of Dinah required you to know the pretty good amount more about her history.
Right.
Otherwise, all you know is some pissy person showed up and kept breaking phones somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even watching Arrow, I should catch you up to that.
Presumably. Except it wouldn't catch you up on the history between the two characters in particular and why they're so antagonistic to each other.
Yeah.
You know, you do require a little bit of DC history to get the full story, but if you're just going for if you're just going for an entrance point, there's really much worse places to come into a book. This one does a good job of setting a new table on an old meal, I guess you could say. So I found it fun. I'm not going to say it's a bad book. It's actually pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
It's just
I was entertained while reading this.
Yeah, it's just not quite as different of a place to get into. With the requirements of history, it's not quite as clean of an entry as like Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel had almost no history to speak of.
Yeah. Apples and oranges there.
Yeah. Let's see. I was trying to think about what to do for next week because it's going to be the last show we do of the year.
When are we going to be doing it?
That would be next Sunday.
Next Sunday. Yeah, okay. I may be working, I don't know.
Okay.
Just a heads up.
You know what? Let's do something easy. Because it has now been, by next Sunday, it'll have been about a month, and Jessica Jones will have been on TV for quite a while. Say, just like 3 episodes worth of it. It should be enough.
Okay. I think I'm the only one here that hasn't actually watched it yet.
Well, we got to get into it sooner or later.
Yeah.
And, you know, it might as well be a simple assignment because goodness knows the further we get into the holidays, the more busy we're all going to be until after New Year's.
Yeah.
All right. So next week will be the last show of the year, and it'll be about Jessica Jones. Thank you very much for tuning in. I invite you to roll with us again next week. Have a great one. Hope you enjoy Thanksgiving and hope your upcoming Christmas looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I am Jeremy.
Steve.
And Jesse.
Don't jerk and drive. Enjoy, people.